Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar. This is the sixth one in our COVID-19 series, and today's topic is on back to school, strategies to reopen, brought to you proudly by the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations. From our national office in Albuquerque, New Mexico, I'm Debbie Halsey. It's my pleasure to serve as Executive Director, and with me behind the scenes is Kim Browning, NCMPR's Associate Director, who's joining us from Boise, Idaho. We hope all of you with us online today continue to do well and that maybe you're settling into a new routine. We do wish you continued success as you manage the issues related to this COVID-19 crisis, and especially as you look ahead to the fall semester. We do have a few housekeeping notes before we get to the presentation. We have created a new NCMPR Facebook group. Many of you might already be members, but you can use that to post follow-up questions to the presenters and follow-up comments to share with colleagues. You can join the group if you haven't already by searching within Facebook for Community College Collaborators COVID-19. And now let's get to today's presentation. Let's meet our presenters. Since 2005, Terry Giltner has been the Chief Marketing Officer for the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. It has 16 colleges and more than 70 campuses. She is responsible for the overall marketing, PR, and digital communication strategy for the organization. Prior to joining the Kentucky system, she served in the public sector as the Executive Director of Communications for the Kentucky Transportation Cabinet and Deputy Communications Director for then Governor Paul Patton. The majority of her marketing career has been in the private sector, where she has worked in the restaurant industry, and her first position was with Kentucky Fried Chicken, where she worked in all aspects of the marketing department. While there, she had the opportunity to be the project manager for one of the largest new product rollouts in the company's history, and she is a longtime dedicated member of NCMPR. Next, we have Jackie Watson. She's the Director of Web Strategy for the Kentucky system. She's a certified content marketing specialist with more than 12 years of digital marketing and content writing experience. She has spent the last 4 years at the Kentucky system developing and managing digital and social media content to ensure its relevance for the system's target audience. We are also very pleased to say that she is NCMPR's 2020 National Rising Star. That's an award given to an up-and-coming professional in community college and marketing and PR, one for us to keep our eye on. And then finally, we have John Wilburn. He's Associate Director of Digital Marketing at the Kentucky system. He oversees both large and small campaigns for the system and its colleges that include both lead generation and awareness goals. Before joining the system, he managed the digital marketing efforts at Gateway Community and Technical College and Western Kentucky University. He has presented on the effectiveness of digital marketing to different organizations across the higher ed spectrum. Terry, Jackie, and John, we are so happy to have you with us, and thank you so much for making today's presentation.
Thank you so much, Debbie. And I just first want to say before I start the presentation, this is Terry Giltner, just how much we appreciate NCMPR. You mean so much to our organization, and particularly in these really difficult times. I think the webinars that you have been sponsoring have just been invaluable. I know a good portion of our colleges are participating in them, so thank you so much for all that you do. This is the title slide, Marketing in the Time of Coronavirus. Who would have ever thought we would ever use that title? I just want to point out the fox. That is our mascot, the Pathfinder, and this is our healthy and safe Pathfinder that we're using during this time. But we're going to go over quite a few things today, all the way from a situation analysis to talking about summer and fall recruitment measures. But first, I want to do a little commercial about the Kentucky Community and Technical College System. We are actually pretty new. We were established in 1998 by the legislature, and they combined 14 of our community colleges that were part of the University of Kentucky with 15 technical institutes that were part of state government. This was a shotgun marriage, but it was one of the best things that happened to our state. And since then, we have grown exponentially. We have become the largest provider of post-secondary education in the state, with about a little over 100,000 students annually. Now, how we are set up, each of our colleges, our 16 colleges, are separately accredited, but we do operate together very closely as a system, particularly to achieve economies of scale and all of that kind of thing. We have a staff at the system office, and we have about 19 staff members, and that includes full-time, part-time. We use a lot of interns, and we have some contractors. What we do at the system office is we provide kind of support, leadership, service, and support to the colleges. We are the ones that work with them on the branding guidelines, strategic marketing and PR plans. We have a statewide media budget that we execute. We develop a lot of the system-wide TV radio spots. We do the front-end web support. A lot of our colleges don't have full-time web folks. And then we develop the recruitment materials and do a lot of market research. Those are just some of the things. But each of our colleges has their own marketing director. And those colleges have other staff. Some, it's a one-person shop, all the way from one of our colleges has about 5 people. And that group, we formed what is called a peer team. And we've done this with all of the disciplines in our organization. And so our marketing peer team is very, very close, and they are the ones that set the strategies and the goals and the things that we all do collectively for marketing and recruitment efforts as a system. We meet weekly, and during the coronavirus, we have extended our normal hour meeting to be an hour and a half to really cover all of the things that we need to discuss. But it's really great to have that support and sharing of practices between all of the different colleges and ourselves at the system office. So these are the things we are going to go over. And I'm first going to talk about the situation. We are in a crisis, and for probably most of us, this is the longest crisis we've ever had to go through. And unfortunately, this situation remains fluid and uncertain. And I know that's it's making our lives in Kentucky very tough to do our jobs. It's tough to know what to focus on a lot. But what we know going forward, we're developing tons of scenarios, just like everybody else, that this probably is going to go on for about at least 18 months, probably more, until we get out of the situation and our economy kind of comes a little bit back to normal. And so we have to look at things differently. We're just required to. We do also know when we come out of the virus, we're never going to be the same. You know, we have adopted new practices. We've learned how to work a different way. We've learned how to market a different way. We've learned how to recruit a different way. And I loved it, the quote, I don't know who gave it. People say Winston Churchill started it, but, you know, never waste a crisis. And that's one of the things we are trying to do out of this, to see opportunities and new things that we're adopting. You know, all of us have had to move online for the summer and spring and summer. And a lot of you are probably doing what we're doing as we move into the fall. Everything's going to be hybrid. And what still remains a concern to us, of course, are our technical program labs. But we also know that our prospective students' heads are in a totally different place than they were 3 months ago. I mean, the world just totally flipped on in, and they're facing so many challenges, as are their families and their parents. There's an uncertain employment, there's isolation. You know, people are just fearful and stressed out. And one thing we think, they're frozen. Now, I think as we begin to work ourselves back to being open, and I do want to say here, Kentucky is one of the strictest states. We're one of the last ones to get open. But I do think once we start, people will start to get unfrozen, and we're seeing that in some of our web inquiries and things. We'll talk about that in a minute. The other thing we know in Kentucky, and I think this is nationally, it causes a huge concern, FAFSA apps are down, and that does not bode well for enrollment for us. The other thing we know, and we work very closely with our 4-years, we have monthly calls with the marketers in the 4-years, and they are aggressively recruiting and marketing right now. And they are very worried about what's going to happen because the risk is even greater for them. And what we know right now at Kentucky, I watch everybody, watch the stuff going on, the NCNPR listserv. Some of you are starting to really spring back. That has not happened for us in Kentucky yet. We are still down, but our web inquiries and applications just in the last 2 weeks have really started to pick up again. So that's kind of where we are. But there are a lot of things that this whole pandemic situation has changed for us. And first, we look at recruitment. What does it mean to recruitment? And we are very involved in recruitment, the marketing efforts at KCTCS. One thing we think moving into the fall, there will be no campus tours. And if there are, there will be very few and very small. High school visits will probably be very limited, and our recruiters have depended on that. On-campus orientations have gone away, certainly right now, but it will probably continue through the fall. And we know that prospective students are going to rely more on our online resources to get their information, and we need to switch. And our recruiters said this has been hard for them to make this switch from more of that face-to-face going out to dealing with really online recruitment methods. And what does it mean to marketing? Well, all of us know that as we come out of this economy, our targeted audiences are going to probably change, and that's probably going to be very fluid and staying on top of that. Our marketing messages that we had before are not relevant. We know that for sure, and we're going to share that in a minute for us. And our platforms are going to have to change. And also, as our economy starts to recover, program offerings and what we should be focused on probably will change as well. But let's look at our overarching strategies here. And let me just say, we are not perfect at any of this. This is just the plan we have developed, and we hope that we're able to follow it. First of all, we have really pushed to establish marketing's role as the communication expert. We are conducting market research. We are really working on messaging and creative that resonates with audiences. We're trying to identify who those audiences should be and develop good personas for them. We are trying to identify the programs and services we should be pushing as we move forward. Right now, really focusing on good opening communication strategies so people feel good about walking in the door. Working on retention, which is key, that focusing on current students. Reassessing and updating our websites. And we just went through a total new web design, and we're re-looking at it again. And Jackie's going to talk about that. Looking, of course, at summer and fall recruitment and enrollment marketing, and also what are we going to do to support recruitment moving forward in this new world. So let's look at each of those strategies. And the first one I said, we're really focusing on establishing marketing's role as the key communicator. I mean, this is our time, guys, to shine and lead. And fortunately, we have a system president who has really, really pushed this. During this time, he has required that each of the college presidents submit to him on a weekly basis their communication plan, who they've talked to, what methods they have used, etc. And he has really forced and pushed marketing into all the major conversations. We have weekly coronavirus calls with our presidents. We sit at that table. He has made sure of that. We established a system-wide enrollment team to kind of, as a whole group with all the colleges, look to how we're going to system-wide address what's happened to us. And originally that was only being led by the chancellor and student services. And Dr. Bach says, you cannot do this without marketing there. And what has happened, as we've said on that team, they have realized that our role has become one of the most active on that team. But one thing I want to say is we as marketers, it is so easy to get caught up in the weeds and the day-to-day emergencies because we have so many of them. And during this time, we have to be able to step back and be strategic. Now, a lot of this will depend on your leadership. Our system president is a real detailed person and sometimes can get lost in the weeds. And we've really tried to help him communication-wise to step back. Now, sometimes he's yelled at me for that. You know, I'm not ready to talk about an opening communication plan. I'm just worried about getting this email out today about opening labs. And we've had to say, I get you, but we have to be focusing on the future. And I'm going to be honest with you, with our enrollment plans, he told me not even 3 weeks ago, he goes, Terry, we can't be out there marketing for the fall or spring. We don't know what we're going to do. And I said, well, you can think like that, but we have to get our ducks in a row and get going. And he has allowed us to do this. But I think trying to stay strategic as much as you have, to stay ahead of each crisis, because I know you all are experiencing this. I know our colleges are. Every day brings a new crisis. And just to keep your leadership not only focusing on that, but how does this relate to how we have to do this strategically and for the future? Making sure that your opening operations plan, and I know you all got them, right? You got all these teams working on it, has a clear communication plan as well. This is a crisis plan, and we put into policy a long time ago. Yeah, you have crisis communications plan, but you have to have a crisis operating plan, but you have to have a crisis communication plan that sits on top of that. And we are really forcing that and reiterating that. In fact, we have a meeting with the presidents tomorrow where we're going over the expectation for their plans. The other thing is you have to be at the table. And our president fortunately has pushed us at the table, but we've had to be pushy. And this is the time to be pushy and to really insert yourself in those things that you know marketing plays a role. Again, don't waste this crisis. This is a great opportunity to elevate the role of marketing. The next is doing market research. I think this is something we're going to have to do continually as we go through this. We have just launched a prospective student research study to see kind of where their minds are right now in terms of enrollment as we start to move out of the crisis. We want to get a sense of their mindset, their barriers, their needs. What we're doing here is where we found our students is we have over 20,000 leads sitting in our system. And those are the folks that we reached out for this research. But we're also looking at a lot of current data. A lot of our colleges did surveys and telephone calls. Their faculty staff did that. We've kind of compiled that data. But also, we have used some of our staff to do a listening analysis. So they've gone into every college's social media platforms, and then we have an app that has a social media platform as well, and analyzed what are the conversations going on now and where are students' heads. But I don't think that'll end. We'll have to continue to do market research as we go through this. The next is, okay, hopefully that research is going to give us a lot of ideas of what we should do with messaging, but we really have to develop messaging that resonates right now with these folks. We had just launched a brand new campaign March 1st. Okay, so right before this. And we had spent a year developing this, a lot of money, and we launched this campaign, and the messages in that campaign are not relevant per day, and we had to pull them, which I'll share in a minute how we went ahead and did that. But we think clearly moving forward, at least in the next 6 months, that really helping people understand that your campuses are safe and they're healthy. I think that's going to be really important. And we are working on a hashtag called #HealthyAt, and it will have our college's initials in this. This goes along with all of the hashtags our governor has created. But let's talk about what they're addressing and what we're doing for messaging. So they're uncertain, they're frozen. So what we say is stay close to home and be safe and come to our college. Having difficulty making decisions for the future, don't give up on those dreams. Don't put those on hold. Don't do a gap year. Financial uncertainties, we are at least one half the price of the 4 years. And unsure about college because of dorms and all the things going on, don't pay that amount for that experience. Come to us. Unsure about taking online classes. Of course, we've been the largest provider of online learning forever, so we don't have to worry about that. And of course, readapting our new creative. So here is our targeted audiences. that we have worked with everyone statewide on this. And we have decided that our primary targeted audience from May through July, probably the beginning of August, are potential transfer students. And that will be high school seniors and their parents, dual credit seniors, and potential, what some people call reverse transfer students. Our secondary audience will begin in mid-August when we stop this campaign, and we'll be focusing on adults who have lost their jobs. And we are working with our workforce team, our state chamber, and our labor cabinet to help with this. We think our initial focus will be on the restaurant and hospitality industry because that is where most of the majority of the unemployment has occurred. Now, the next strategy is figuring out what programs and services we offer and we should be focusing on. And we just had a huge meeting with our workforce group today on this. And we, again, are working with those same teams and this ad hoc, this statewide enrollment team we're on to really think about what our focus in programming should be in the near future. Right now, they're telling us healthcare and IT, but also transportation and logistics. We have a free community college scholarship that is called the Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. That's different than a lot of, because it only pertains to 5 sectors, and it really is only technical programs. Our colleges provide 97% of the programming for this, and we think this will be another thing to pick up and probably move ahead as we move forward. But this one we'll continue to look at and analyze as we get new data in. The next one, as I said before, making sure that you have a strong opening communication plan overlaying your operations plan. And this is what we're working. We have a big meeting with our presidents tomorrow on this. But we know students are not going to come back on our campus if they are unsure about how safe it is, that, you know, we really can do the programs we say we can do. Faculty and staff are just as insecure as our students are. And we know incoming high school students and their parents have all these safety and concerns, and we still have to convince our current students to enroll. So what we're working on with our colleges is, first of all, we're developing templates for an overarching communication plan. That includes a comprehensive plan with a weekly editorial calendar that includes a specific plan for that college. And our target is communicating to each of our audiences at least 10 times between now and the start of the fall semester. Really working on our communication messaging and communication pieces and tools. We've developed a lot of new tools since we've been in this new world. I'm sure a lot of your presidents have gotten really good at doing videos and a lot of all this other stuff, but we're really trying to fine tune and really utilize everything that we have in a very consistent plan. We are going to involve faculty in this plan because they're the ones that have a lot of contact with the students. And if a student hears from a faculty that things are ready and open and sees how things are going, for example, we're opening some of our makeup labs here later this week. And we want to take videos to show the students that we're in there and it's safe and it's clean and it's ready for people to come back. We really feel like having presidents reach out to high school market. A lot of our presidents have written individual letters. I'm sure some of you all have done, to say, listen, we're the great alternative right now. Your kids can come here to school. It's close to home. It's safe. We're ready for them. And then we're doing a particular plan for the dual credit. But I think this other one for all of us to really look at what we can do to help students fill out FAFSA. I'm sure a lot of you are in the same boat, but a lot of our high school students really learned how to fill out FAFSA and got this done in the spring of their senior year because the high school counselors were forcing them to do this. Well, they weren't on the high school campus during this time. So no one has been helping them do this. And we have tons of first generation college students in Kentucky, and they need this help. And so thinking of ways we can do that. We're going to look at a social media campaign using that hashtag I mentioned. We are updating all our websites. Jackie's going to talk about that in a minute. Developing media plans for news releases, interviews, communicating with our legislators, providing all of our other key stakeholders from our board to foundation with those talking points, and executing ongoing communication plans to faculty and staff about how we're opening, safety precautions, et cetera. And I just want to say something about this. You all probably see tons of market research out there about students really not being satisfied with the way colleges are communicating to them. This is coming out in every survey I've said. Even if you don't have clear plans, at least letting them know what you're doing. Also, very good visible signage I want to say something about this. Signage that isn't institutional, but signage that shows that you care and that you really want to have a health and safety environment. And here's an example of what we did. This is a yard sign that we've created for all of our campuses that uses that hashtag healthy. This is our college in Ashland, Kentucky. And you can say, help us keep our campus healthy and safe. We didn't want to just download something from the CDC and slap it on a poster board and make it look institutional. We really wanted to make it part of who we are and our branding. Now, the next one, I am not going to spend a lot of time on. All I'm going to say here with retention, our colleges have been working on this since the minute the coronavirus happened. What we are doing here, and we're taking advantage of it because we have a president team working on it. We have never been perfect at this, and really have not developed the necessary processes to do retention the way it really needs to be done. So we are working with an outside consultant and with our president to develop an ongoing retention plan. So we're taking this advantage of this crisis and we're looking at each of these different aspects of it, from spring to summer, from summer to fall, ongoing. And really using all the tools we have, particularly getting the faculty out there to understand that retention is one of their key jobs. So if you want to reach out to me for the detailed plan, just go ahead and I'll be happy to share it with you. So next I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, who's going to talk about what we've been doing with our websites.
Thanks, Terry. Before I can speak on what we're currently doing, I need to briefly fill you in on what we did to the websites back in the middle of March. So when all this craziness started, we utilized our emergency notification banners to drive visitors to our COVID-19 information page on the site. At the time, COVID was an emergency. These blue banners would appear on every page of our site. And at first it was good because no matter where you were, you could always access the COVID-19 information page. But as time went on, we noticed that it was starting to affect our web leads. John will talk about that a little bit later. But the colleges were adding a ton of information to the emergency notification banners, and they were taking up the entire screen on mobile, and they were taking up almost half the screen on desktop. So they weren't really helpful. They were more cumbersome. So our solution was to disable our emergency notification banners and replace them with a single gold banner at the top of the home page only. And you can see that in the first image on the slide. It simply says, stay healthy, stay informed, find information and resources and updates on how we're handling COVID-19. This link takes visitors directly to our COVID-19 pages. You'll see that on the right. And as for the information that we're sharing on these pages, originally it was press releases, phone numbers, contacts, local health department information. And now, as we're looking to overhaul these pages as we're heading into the fall, they'll switch to a more, what are we doing to keep you safe? There'll be more informational messaging, and the layout and content will be updated. Besides working on our COVID communications, we also need to focus on the other portions of our websites. The focus now is helping prospective and current students find the information they need in a variety of ways. So this included creating a plan to update our websites, home, transfer, admissions, and program pages. So the first thing we wanted to focus on is what we call the hero image splash section. When visitors come to one of our college sites or KCTCS's website, the first thing they see is a full width 15-second video that we refer to as our hero image. In the bottom center is the hero image splash, complete with a message, 3 links, and a call to action. Prior to COVID, our message was never underestimate you, and the links would take them to request information, visit a campus, and create a custom view book. Well, when our campuses shut down, we knew visit a campus wasn't a good link to have on our homepage because nobody was going to be able to come to campus. And at the same time, we wanted to relook at our messaging because we wanted to let students know that we understood what they were going through during this trying time. We quickly changed our message to read, "We're here for you." And then we removed visit a campus and replaced it with summer and fall classes to keep enrollment top of mind with prospective students. On the next slide, you'll see our summer and fall classes link goes to this new summer and fall classes page. It's an informational page that's intended to generate leads and help with admissions. You'll notice on this page that all images are of a single person with a laptop or general objects. There aren't any groups or big campus gathering shots here. We're trying to focus our attention on the creative as much as possible when it comes to the website, but we still do have a ton of images of groups of people and people interacting in ways that they might not be able to do this fall. While we know it's an issue, it's also super hard to change all of your photo assets in the midst of a pandemic. So good images are hard to find, but we can work with that. We're working to find ways to show that we still have people on campus and still be mindful about the new ways in which people interact. We also changed the announcement section. We moved the announcement section of our homepage up to the very top. One of the things that we realized was that students are really focused on getting as much information as they can, and they want to see it as soon as they come to the site. Now, this is quite a big shift from the way it was before. Most of the time, students would go anywhere else, social media or a current students page for information. Now they want to see announcements right on your homepage. So we took it from the bottom of our site and we brought it up to the very top. Next up, as Terry mentioned, transfer is a big priority for us right now. On our homepage, we actually have a program section that has 6 tiles of spotlight programs, and transfer was previously the 6th tile in that grid. As our priority shifted, we decided to move transfer from the 6th tile to the 1st, and we've redesigned our transfer pages to make them easier to navigate. And this is a screenshot of what our new transfer page looks like. So if you're making an audience a priority, you need to focus on the information that the audience is receiving. We completely redesigned the transfer section because prior to this, it was just links to the 4 years with very little thought of how somebody visiting our site would interact with the page. Now students can look for information and can choose whether they're transferring to KCTCS, from KCTCS, if they're reverse transferring. We also have transfer guides that show the transfer protocols to our 4-year partners. And we have a transfer toolbox that can guide you through the entire process. And then the final tile is contacts, making it easier to access a person to speak to if you have questions about transfer. It's a lot easier and neater to navigate when people can come to this page. Regardless of what information you're communicating on your website, you should always be thinking in terms of target audience. So still to come on our website is a new hero image, that full width video at the top of our site that I spoke of earlier. This will have real world messaging to tie into our campaign. We're also going to be adding a flexibility page to address multiple class styles that we'll offer this fall and what they mean. There's a world of people out there that don't understand what online, remote, or hybrid classes are, and this page would guide them through all of that. And finally, we'll be creating a transfer success stories page with video testimonials to use on our websites and social media, highlighting the successes of our past transfer students through all of our website changes, especially in this time of the pandemic, we're focusing on keeping all of our content as ADA compliant as possible, because now more than ever, your content needs to be accessible to everyone. But that's all for the website, so I'm going to turn it back over to Terry.
Thanks, Jackie. So our strategy 8 here was to create a system-wide enrollment marketing plan. And as I mentioned before, our focus is first on transfer students. So our strategies include adapting our current creative for focusing on high school seniors and their parents, and freshmen and sophomore who might like to come to us next year instead of a 4-year. So we have developed media and outreach plans for all of these 3 groups that include high school seniors and parents, incoming, and dual credit. We are really focusing on individuals who are already in our pipeline, all of those databases that we could find. You know, we have the high school list that we purchase. We have all of the web leads that have come in that are in the high school age, and we have dual credit seniors. The other thing we are looking at doing, and we have done this before, is to sponsor a statewide online transfer fair sometime in late June, early July, that also has a FAFSA completion component as part of it. Now, our targeted audience for all of this is 18 to 24, which is a much younger audience than what we generally focus on our system-wide campaigns. I'm going to show you some of the creative that we're using right now. This is the postcard that goes out next week to all dual credit senior parents. And you can see the front part of the card really goes for it, where college you actually can afford. And we list our tuition compared to all of the 4 years. And on the back of that card, you can see the real call out to the parent is, your student can stay healthy at home and save up to $22,000. I do want to say we customized this to all of the colleges. So where you see KCTCS there would be the initials of the college in their local area. This is our transfer HTML ad. And so what would pop up first for a student is this first screen, why pay more? And then the next one that says 1/2 the class size plus 1/2 the price equals 100% of the education. And then college for the real world, start today. Now here's our new creative, and I first want to explain, as I mentioned, we had launched this huge new creative campaign, and it was called The Real World. And what it did, it opened on this outrageous Instagram depiction of, one was a high school student in front of a Lamborghini with a tracksuit that matched the color of the Lamborghini, something some person might put on Instagram who was this ridiculously wealthy person. And so it said, you know, you don't live in this world, you know, and it switched to us and how we prepare and get people ready for the actual real world. Well, obviously that image of a super wealthy person and that kind of tone of humor really wasn't going to make it where we are now. So we have changed our spots, using a lot of the same footage. So you'll see in this storyboard, the first shot, this is of a teen that has run out of gas. And it says, dealing with the real world wasn't easy, even before the whole global pandemic thing. You're trying to pay bills, you're worrying about the family, or just trying to figure out what you want to be. The good news, Ashland Community and Technical College is open and ready with on-campus and online programs that can lead to essential careers in IT, healthcare, and more. And at less than half the cost of a 4-year university. So never put your dreams on hold and never underestimate you. And then what would go in that last slide, and I put it in here because we really wanted to keep that healthy message out there, this hashtag healthy at, and then the college's initial. I do want to say we customize all of our spots 17 different ways, 16 for all of the colleges, and then a system-wide spot. We rarely ever use a system-wide spot. We always do, for the most part, all of our media plans are very local market-based. So our potential transfer students, I'm going to turn this over now to John, who's going to talk about, kind of what we're looking at in terms of our list and media plan.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. And thank you all for joining us. So we're going to review a little bit of what we did with our media plan going into a world that has a pandemic. First off, some of this, as we had to pivot with the creative, is definitely a pivot on our media dollars. We had already allotted all this. As Terry mentioned, back in March, we had launched this year-long planning campaign that was supposed to go on until the end of our fiscal year. And then in March, what happens? Something we never expected. So, we also heard early on that the system president was worried about marketing to people. We don't know what we're going to do. We don't know what's going on. So we're going to look at a few different things in this section. The first is the time right? A lot of people may be thinking that, should I be spending money on marketing right now with so much uncertainty? Depending on your state, on your governor, on the federal government, there's a lot of uncertainty. We're still learning. Our governor has daily calls at 5 o'clock to update us on what's going on. So, we want to know if that time is right. Are people ready for this to continue? And then we're also going to look at what works for us, particularly. We want to feed that pipeline as marketers, and also have some awareness layered in there. But ultimately, we need names, phone numbers, emails, so that we can collaborate with our recruitment folks at the college and actually get people to enroll. As Terry mentioned, we're down around 20% right now, but we are seeing that uptick. And we're going to talk about that. And then the third thing is what she mentioned about, using what you own, or maybe what you've already purchased. In our case, we had already purchased a list, which is the ACT high school list. That's seniors in the state of Kentucky. And then we also have owned lists. These can come from multiple sources. And we're going to talk about how we use those digitally. Most of this is going to be digital. Terry did show the yard signs, which is great for opening. She did show the postcard, which is great for traditional, but the good vast majority of this is going to be digital. So let's take a moment on this chart here and let me explain what we're looking at and how we saw the pandemic occur in terms of lead generation from all of our sources. So this is the college website. This is any paid media we had out there. And this is really what we saw happen. So week one is essentially the first week of March. In our state, the governor here, I sourced it at the bottom, announced that K through 12 and potentially higher education needed to shift to an online only platform. When that happened, we went into week 3 and you can see that we dipped dramatically. That was the initial reaction to being stuck in that kind of online only model. Now we've not changed that. We are moving to summer online. We are moving to hybrid in the fall. So none of that's changed, but we have seen the actual pattern of our lead submissions change. You can see they're starting to flatten year over year. They're starting to flatten. And then we get here to about between week 9 and 10. And we see that phase 1 reopening, that's where the governor has come out and said, here's how we're going to reopen in phase 1. And that's added some solidarity to people wanting to come back to college and requesting more information. And the important thing to take away from this too is that the biggest loser on this was our non-paid media, our college website. It took the largest hit. It took the longest time to recover and really was supported by paid media. So if you are concerned about using paid media to kind of stem the bleeding, so to speak, if you are down like us, or even if you are up, really consider pumping some money into paid media. So on the next slide, we're actually going to look at how our age separated. As Terry mentioned, we're looking at this transfer audience. And, at first we're like, okay, is that even who we should target? Is there interest there? Because when we saw that kind of big hit in week 3, the biggest biggest audience hit was the high school seniors. That age group just plummeted. And a lot of that may be because K through 12 had just closed. They were suddenly at home all the time. I mean, there's a degree of uncertainty from your family, from them, and we saw that dramatically decline. So we wanted to make sure that we were targeting the right audience. Our leadership was really pushing for that transfer idea, whether they're coming from high school, whether they're, a freshman or a sophomore in a 4-year, how can we get them to come in here? And so what we saw as we got towards the end of this is that traditional audience is now upticking after, all of it happened with the pandemic. So that trust is coming back. And they've now become about 44% of our total pipeline, which is all the leads that we have in our pipeline are in that traditional age range, and it continues to grow. So we've decided that this is, by the numbers, one of the great audiences that we can touch. So when we move on to the next slide, I really want to talk about the media channels that we're going to be using. So there's a variety here. I mentioned leads versus awareness. And so you may all be thinking, what does that look like in a world of higher education? Well, I can't tell you in your world what that looks like, but I can tell you in my world what that looks like in Kentucky. So if you look at, we have the lower end of the funnel, we have mainly leads, we have Google Ads, we have Facebook, we have Bing, which is now Microsoft advertising. We have that mid part of the funnel, which is, the ever scary but fun IP targeting, which is actually narrowing down onto people's locations. We're looking at contextual and behavioral display. We have all those awareness channels that are out there. The popular ones with this audience, you notice, are not in red, which is where we're going to go. So we left out the TikToks of the world, the Snapchats, we left out Twitters, even the digital radio component, because ultimately we want to reinforce that lead generation with that awareness marketing. And plus, the market has changed. Everyone's at home, at least here in Kentucky for the most part. We're opening up a little bit, but where most of us are being healthy at home still. And so those ideas of the OTT, the Hulus, the Plutos, the Tubies, which are all these over-the-top platforms that, isn't traditional cable or traditional broadcast, are really being tapped into more. They were already growing. That trend was already there, but we continue to see that go up and up and up. So these red ones are the ones we're going to be focusing on. So I said Facebook, and normally when I say Facebook to anyone and I talk about an 18 to 24-year-old audience, they look at me and they go, really? Facebook? Isn't it older? Isn't it dead? Well, neither. So it's not dead. It's still one of the largest social media platforms. In all fairness, it is trending older when you look at general usage. However, if we narrow it down by, actual research that's been done with a younger audience. So this graph here off to the right is from Ruffalo Noel Lovitz, their last E-Expectations report. You can see that while, Snapchat, Twitter, maybe even TikTok, because it was slightly a fad after this report was generated, are probably what they're using when it comes to looking at, colleges or, technical colleges or community colleges. Really, they're not going there for that. They're doing their friend messaging there. They're sharing photos there. They're not going to look at college, when Facebook is still right up there with the Instagrams. In fact, juniors, it's neck and neck there as far as, what they want to use when they go look for that. Also, mom and dad are heavy Facebook users now. It is trending up, so that's actually hitting that generation. So they're healthy at home. We want to get in front of mom and dad as well to reassure them that they can be healthy at ACTC or they can be healthy at one of our colleges. So it's still a powerful, piece for mom and dad, as well as that 16 to 22 when it comes to college exploration specifically. And then in Facebook, it is typically a lower end of the funnel, and it traditionally generates leads more because you're in a different mindset when you're on Facebook. So we want to layer that in with some of that OTT, that display, which is going to generate less leads but more awareness. And then finally, we need to decide how we were going to target people. IP targeting, like I said, is, some people may hear geofencing, geo-targeting. There's a lot of words in the digital space that can really, be confusing. IP targeting is another one of those words. Essentially, we're using location data to target devices within a network on the internet. So basically making that little dome around your home, hitting all your devices based on data points that we own or have purchased. So the purchase list we have is the ACT list, which we've referenced. So that's those high school seniors. So we will be IP targeting them. We're also going to be doing some owned lists. So as Terry mentioned, just recently with our research, we had around 20,000 people in the pipeline just recently. We see somewhere in around a realm of 60,000 per year. So that's data points that we can then add to it. Some unique piece about our data is, for a variety of reasons, we collect very little data, but we decided to include date of birth. That allows us to do this segmentation that we're talking about here today with that 18 to 24 range, because all of our lead data has date of birth. Now, I'm not, promoting a huge form. I know some colleges out there ask for everything under the sun. I would promote for a super short form as a marketer, but I encourage you, we did not see any loss by adding date of birth. We did a split test of our colleges, and we only saw about 1% change by adding it. So don't be afraid to add certain data points if they add a layer to your marketing. And then finally, it's something we own and most of us own is our, student information system data beyond just our, customer relationship management data. So we have, a SIS that contains everyone who's ever applied. Well, dual credit applies and they don't always retain. So what we can do is we can filter out that list, get everything from date of birth, get everything from addresses, and a lot of different data points, and really hyper target this group to really promote, that we're open, that you should come back, we're healthy at our colleges. And so on the next slide, I'm going to give it back to Terry to kind of talk a little bit about the additional campaigns we may have coming forward.
Now, I already mentioned that this is our second focus that will come in mid-August. These will be adults, and we're still working, as I said, with our workforce group and our statewide enrollment group to help us with this. But that campaign, we're going to start working on the minute we get everything done with the transfer, and again, to launch in mid-August. And some of our strategies here with that, we're going to identify and create campaigns for our existing databases, our adult web leads, stop outs, etc. We'll do a different media and outreach campaign for them. One of the things that we are very lucky, we had received funding through Lumina that went to our state. It's not really a governing organization, but it's the Council on Post-Secondary Education. And that really was to target adult students. And fortunately, we held off on that campaign. And now we are back working on it. It will be a campaign, again, targeting adults. It will be promoting that Work Ready Kentucky Scholarship. Remember, I said that's our free community college, and we are seeing web leads on that really go up right now. And one of the things we think is that adult students coming back, trying to navigate the whole higher education thing is hard, and maybe having a direct person helping them would be great. So we are going to be sponsoring an adult student hotline. We think this will launch sometime around September and October. We have a rapper who is part of Nappy Roots. You may not have heard of them before, but they're famous in Kentucky, who is going to be the spokesperson for this campaign for us. So we're excited about that. And we will be working with all of our local colleges on executing local campaigns beyond our statewide one. Now, this last one, John's going to help me a little bit with this, but at KCTCS, recruitment is part of our marketing mission, but we view that we carry the baton from the time getting somebody to fill out that inquiry form all the way through until they fill out the application. And then we hand that baton over to admissions. So we as I mentioned before, developed the recruitment materials for the colleges. Thank goodness last year, we developed a digital view book for all the colleges. And that is going to be a key component as we move to the fall, when our recruiters can't be out there giving those physical view books out to students. that online digital ebook is going to be just invaluable to us. It is so great, and it also has a lead generation tool as part of it. It is just wonderful. I'm going to have John talk a little bit more about this in a minute, but we are scrambling right now to find some develop assets for a virtual tour and find a platform. I'm on NCNPR listserv, and I see everybody having those conversations because we look at it as a system situation or solution. Sometimes we move a little slower, but we're trying to really get that in place sometime before fall starts. And then we also are executing chat. I'm going to have John talk about that in a minute. But we are out there looking at any other online platforms to assist us with recruitment. As I said before, we're looking at a tool for online fairs, starting out with a transfer fair. And then we have, for this last year, because I just want to set the situation up before I give this back to John, when we redid our website, and Jackie would be happy to share all this with you, when we redid our websites, our lead generation from web inquiries increased by 200%. Now, that is great, but what comes sometimes with great things are also difficulties. Our recruiters could not keep up with the amount of leads that we were generating through the web. And so we started working on a test to kind of develop a process, system, and materials that would support them in that front end conversion area. So I'm going to turn it back over to John to talk about this.
Thanks, Terry. So, as Terry mentioned really early on, is never waste a crisis. Now, obviously, we started this prior to the crisis, but we're really happy we did, and we're able to build those relationships with different areas, particularly in our idea, student services, who up until recently handled all of the recruitment and all of the admissions process. So as a part of that, when we redid the websites in 2018, we did see that huge jump, and we saw that not only were recruiters not able to handle digital leads like they were coming in at 200%, sometimes higher depending on the school. We also saw they didn't have the capability to do it either. They weren't familiar with the technology. They didn't have the kind of mindset. A lot of our recruiters were that traditional recruiter that's been around for a long time. They're used to going to an open house. They're used to going to a live event or a high school and talking to people. And that takes a completely different mindset than someone who's communicating via chat, via email, via text, via, a virtual environment of any sort. So digital has kind of shifted all of this. So as part of that, we have built relationships, and I would hope that if you don't have kind of this relationship at your local area, it is difficult. It took a lot of time, but we have built relationships not only with our college recruiters and admissions folks, our system office admissions, student service folks. It is a good opportunity to do that because we're all scrambling to help each other at this point. So what we did is we developed a pilot. And the hope is that this pilot will continue, but it is a pilot to test it. And so we chose 4 colleges. So that's, 25% of our, college number. But we did choose the largest college and the smallest college. It wasn't intentional. We actually had that happen just by luck. And so our largest college has somewhere around 14,000, students, and our smallest college has somewhere around, 900 to 1,000. And so you're looking from leads from 1,000 a month to maybe just 80 to 200 a month. And so we wanted to kind of amalgamate that, bring it together, and try to help the admission side of the house and own a little bit of this because, we are generating this and we want to own some of it. We feel like Terry mentioned that idea from them requesting information until they apply, we have some responsibility there. So we were able to start this project. But the big thing is the culture change. We are more on digital platforms now, whether that's going to be virtual tours, which we are heavily looking at. We're not an organization that moves fast. I hope you all can relate to that. So we are fighting the good fight on that to get something as quick as possible. But also other digital platforms. We're rolling out a new SMS platform with AI. We just redid the CRM a year ago, so people understanding how that works for email. And then testing live chat, particularly on the pages that Jackie mentioned, which was those summer fall pages, to see if we can help people, when they can't come to campus, when it may be hard to call someone because you're not sure how to actually call someone, or there's some routing problems, or it's going to a big call center that may not be as strong in recruitment. So we've kind of moved forward with this. So on the next slide, we're going to actually talk about what we did as part of this pilot. The first big thing was to develop a new communication plan. And when I say that, it's, all these components for these 4 colleges for recruiting to get them to apply. We did, bring in an outside firm, Interact, to actually, give us some insight. We wanted some outside opinion because, we can sit down and talk amongst each other and say, okay, we should send an email on day 0. We should send, a mailer on day 3, and then we should, text someone on day 10. But, it's good to have that outside opinion who's had a lot of experience. So we were happy to have that relationship. We did want to implement the 2 new things that I was talking about with these prospects. So currently, we are just now rolling SMS out for the admissions pipeline, not the prospect to applicant pipeline. So we want to bring that in, test the artificial intelligence, test, whatever automations we can use within it, and how, the recruiters that, that we brought in who are more digitally minded can, be tapped into for our more traditional recruiters. Also chat, that's different. We've not had that for some time, and I think only a handful of our colleges have ever done it in the past. So we wanted to add that. And then finally, we wanted to look at doing this with small groups or small numbers of pages. That's why the pilot is so useful here. And then finally, staffing. We want to understand how we can reuse those traditional recruiters. Can we show them a way to improve and use these digital tools, versus being face-to-face? And then on this slide, I'm just going to talk briefly about that communication plan. So as of today, we do have consideration, which we label as beginning at the submission of a request for information form. And so they pipe in either from the website or from a paid campaign, and we begin communicating with them. Most of this is automated. You can see that we break it up by 10 weeks, and then it's color-coded in the top left to kind of show you what we're going to do on each of those touches. So the items is the number of touch points we're planning on having throughout their life cycle within that prospect funnel. And then we even went as far as recommending days on when things should go out, depending on when they would get a mail piece in the mail if we do it on this day. What's a good day to send an email or a text message? How can we layer in some of our media that we're producing, videos that, we're always asked to produce about student success stories? How can they be layered in? We did not shift this completely to COVID-19 once it happened. We basically peppered it in. So there's some language about being healthy, at college. There's, before that, there was some language about understand these are unprecedented times, but we're still here. We're still working because all of us still work. And then finally, we're going to develop some new print, new email templates, et cetera, to kind of bring this up to speed. A lot of this is based on R&L research. A lot of this is based on working with third parties. And so hopefully going into the next fiscal year, we'll be able to add in the next and last piece, which will be the awareness piece, which is essentially the people who are not familiar with us, but we've somehow got their information. And with that, I will give it back.
And that's really all we have. We want to thank everybody so much for allowing us to share what we are doing. And Debbie, I'll just turn it over to you.
All right, very good. Well, Terry, Jackie, John, this is fabulous information, and we can't say thank you enough. We do have questions coming in, so as long as you've got some time to hang on with us, and I know some people are having to hop off to get to other meetings, but for those still on the line, and we've still got quite a few, we do have a flow of questions coming in, so let's get started on those. So first up, Terry, if you could, how do you determine which information comes from your central office and which comes from individual colleges, the individual colleges? How do you break that down?
Oh, that's a big question. So, and it depends on what information you're talking about. When it's related to COVID, the presidents as a whole meet, and they've been meeting weekly, and they work with our college president to determine what is going to be a system-wide perspective here, and a system-wide policy, and what is left up to the colleges. So that really, a lot of times, is done at our president's level. In terms of when we're talking about marketing messages, the whole marketing peer team works together on this system-wide plan. So when we're developing new creative, everyone is engaged to that. We have a mini team of about 4 people that help guide our ad agency with all of that. And then we have system dollars that we will promote the campaign from the system. Now, as I said before, we always buy locally, or we target everything locally, so it is for that college. Then each college has its own marketing dollars. And so they can choose to support whatever campaign we're doing or alter it, whatever. Or a lot of them have specific programs and initiatives that they have to promote on their own. And that is certainly acceptable. But we all have a standard brand and brand policy. Those are all up on our website if you want to see them. They are codified. Everybody has to follow them. They're pretty thorough. And by the way, the whole peer team developed them. But there's a lot of local customization available and all that. But no matter how they customize it, everything has to fall within our common brand. I hope that makes sense.
Okay, very good. There's another question related to this, the structure of the system. So, and I think you touched on this, Terry, a little bit. What's the staff composition of the communications team? And I don't know if you want to talk about the system office. I think we talked about that. And then perhaps do each of the colleges have their own marketing teams?
Yes, each of the colleges has their own, at least one person. Some have more, and it's all based on what the college president, wants to support. So we have one college, I think, who has as many as 5. So it is very much locally dependent, but they have to have at least one person who is a college marketing person. At the system office, our team is divided into public relations and crisis communications. So we have, right now, it's just one person. We used to have more than that. And then we have a marketing team, of which myself and John, and there's another individual, Brittany, that's part of that. We have a creative group, which we have a videographer, and we have graphic designers, creative directors. And then we have this web services team, digital team. John kind of walks in between those. So that's kind of how we're set up. We use a lot of interns, and we got cut in positions a while back. And so we have peppered it using interns. We have been so lucky. We're really close to the University of Kentucky, so we work with them. We get a lot of folks, primarily from the business school and with marketing degrees. And they've been with us long term, and so it has been really, really good. And we use contractors. We have an ad agency, and then we have some freelance graphic designers we use as well.
All right, very good. When you talked about, Terry, the creative, and you were showing us some examples of the messaging and the creative, this question wonders if you have any concerns when you talked about the tuition at competing four-year institutions. Do you have any concerns about printing the actual names of those institutions and their tuition rates instead of doing just a brand X kind of statement?
We're very, that's such a good question. So when we work with our transfer team on this, and they kept saying, oh, we don't want to offend. Let me just tell you, our public warriors are out offending us all the time and going right after us. So no, we don't. I will say we have been doing this in our view book and recruitment materials for quite a while. And we've been listing out all of the tuition for the local colleges compared to ours. So this is not something new to us. And I will say we have never gotten any kickback from any of the public 4 years. John and Jackie, if you ever, I don't remember ever hearing anybody call us on it. So.
All right, next question.
Oh, Debbie, I do want to say one thing. We have
Yeah.
lost market share in the last 4 years to the public 4 years. So I really, they've gone after our students really hard. I'm sorry.
No, and I'm with you. I love that question because I think a lot of colleges sort of hesitate to do that sort of direct comparison. But perhaps it's time to rethink that. So, by the way, Terry, we do have a number of people asking to see that retention plan that you had
Okay.
mentioned. So I'm going to ask if you can send that to me. We'll be sure to send it out to everybody.
Okay, got it.
If that's doable.
Uh-huh.
All right, very good. Next question up. So how do you work with student admissions to help with the process? At their college, we find that we can advertise, but students often get stuck through the student enrollment process.
That is such a great question. I'm going to have John help me on this. We have been working to bridge with this group, to have a bridge with this group for a long time. I will say at the system level, our student services area, while they wanted to own recruitment, never did anything for recruitment. We were the ones that actually were producing the materials and doing the marketing plans. And so on our own, and this was, oh my gosh, about 6 years ago, our recruiters did not have a team to work together. You know, we just have never taken recruitment very seriously until enrollment started to decline. So on my own, I formed this huge recruitment work group that consisted of all the recruiters throughout the system, and we just started calling meetings. And so that was kind of the first step, but I'm going to turn this over to John because he has done a great job working with our student services folks at in our system office that really connects directly with what's going on at the colleges.
Yeah, thanks, Terry. And I think that is a great question. As I kind of mentioned in the presentation, we had a rough relationship early on, and it did take some of what Terry mentioned and bringing our groups together. Some of it also is just making them aware of that, you know, stoppage without offending. So sharing that with large groups, you know, obviously we know everybody's working hard, but we do need to say what is happening. And essentially that's what we did with the pilot is we went to all of the presidents and said, look, we're seeing an issue here. We're not blaming anyone. We just want you to be aware of it. And almost that allowed us to get an in. And then we were able to start working with the admissions directors, working with VPs at the colleges, letting them know the whole process. They were a part of the communication plan. We brought them in while we led it, we funded it. We had their input, we shared it with them frequently. We had meetings with them, and we continue to have that as well. And then also I have to give props to the recruiter that we have. He's really good at communicating daily with them on what's happening at the system office. You know, we do have that work group where we communicate at large as well. So I think it's a combination of one, you need to address the problem. So if there is a stop in your funnel, make sure leadership knows that. You know, of course, don't blame anyone. We're not trying to burn bridges here. We're all working hard. And I think our recruiters were working hard as well. They were just working differently. They needed to change that culture. And then our system president latched onto that to understand that this is a different part of the brain. We're not positioned for that. We have huge turnovers in these areas. So I would say all of that together is, you know, now is the time. If I could encourage you to try to approach that, if you can pull numbers, data doesn't lie sometimes. Most of the time it's very beneficial. And so you can use that to get an in like we did, and then cultivate that relationship and try to build, you know, relationships at the mid-level, at the low level, you know, and then that trickles up, and then suddenly you have a working organization. So that would be my opinion on it.
And I want to add one thing. Probably a lot of you are where we are. We have people that think all we do is make things look pretty, right? And so being able to show that the campaigns that you're doing and like the web work we were doing is generating leads that can convert to students. And so having that data is really, really, really important. And when we were able to show that we increased leads by 200%, but we weren't converting any of them, no one was following up with them. That was just a huge aha moment for our college presidents.
All right, we have a couple of questions about your digital view book that you mentioned. Number one, what platform did you use to create it? And then we have several people who have said, how can we see it?
Okay, John, what platform did we use? I can't even remember.
We use Custom View Book,
Thank you.
and yeah, and then the second piece, it is located, as Jackie was showing on her presentation, as one of the calls to action on all of our homepages.
So they can find it. Can they find it on the system page and then the individual colleges as well? Is that what you're saying, John?
They need to go to one of our colleges. You can go to the system website and then click one of the colleges, and it'll be on the call out there.
Okay, perfect, perfect. All right, next up, if your adult promotion is starting August, September, are you planning on spring 21 start for them or later? Do you have any short-term adult promotions planned for this fall, or is your sole focus on high school?
Well, we have so many short-term programs, and with this Work Ready Scholarship, there are so many programs that they can apply for starting in the fall all the way through spring. And so we will be promoting those and spring enrollment, because we really believe that a lot of these folks, they will just be coming off unemployment and they're just starting to think about it. And spring's a good time for them to enroll. You know, we are taking advantage of, we do know with our adult web inquiries, we get tons right around the first of the year because it's time to start a new lease, start something new. And that's kind of what we're going to take advantage of there. Does that make sense?
If there's a follow-up question to that, we'll ask that individual to do it. Yes, makes sense. All right, do you have a similar communication plan that continues at the point of application at each point in your process or your funnel?
John?
Yeah, that's an interesting question.
Yes, it is. That's when we pass it off.
Yeah, I'm going to answer very loosely because I'm not as involved, so I don't want to say yes or no. We do have a CRM that does have all of those folks in it. There are some automated plans. You know, we've tried to rehash that earlier part to make it more cohesive and had a structural model that can be applied to the 4 pilot colleges, but then eventually applied to all 16 colleges. Unfortunately, our admissions area, since we all are independently accredited, sometimes the admissions process is different from college to college, which can make this very hard. We do have technology to help that, but it is utilized very differently depending on which college you would be talking to.
All right, if there's any follow-up to that, let us know. Next question, how many people are or have been at the table with leadership to discuss marketing and communication? Is it just you, Terry, or you along with others on your team?
It depends on the topic. So a lot of the times it is just me, but a lot of times I bring our director of crisis communication and public relations, comes to a lot of those meetings as well. John will come when we're talking about his subject, or Jackie. So it really depends on what the topic is.
Okay, very good. Here's another question. Wonder if there's anything else you might want to say about this point, any kind of elaboration, but it goes back to the idea of pointing out that community colleges are more affordable, maybe a better option for students and their parents nervous about the 4-year schools. But how do you do this without offending some of your partner schools, since we do depend on those relationships with the 4 years? So you touched on that. Is there anything else you might want to say about that point?
The other thing I want to add, and John or Jackie might want to jump in on this, but our plans are so targeted, I don't think many of them will see what we're advertising, because we're not really doing much general awareness with this, maybe a little bit. But I'm going to be honest with you, I shared part of our plan with my 4-year partners and no one cared. So I sometimes I think some of that they think they're so much better than we are, or everybody just wants to come to them. I don't know, but we have not had sensitivity. Jackie or John, do you want to say anything to that?
Well, I just think we're giving them the same information that they could go find themselves. We're just presenting it all in one place. We're not saying anything different. You can go on any of the 4 years websites and find the tuition. We just put it all in one place. So
I think it's fair in our creative to this person's question is while we mention tuition, while we do name them, we do walk a fine line. Particularly, I've had this discussion with our college marketing folks as we talk about digital marketing. I mean, you could make an ad that says we're better than X college, or we're better at this than someone else. We usually don't go that far. But we do straddle that line of, mentioning what our benefits are to them. And I think that's why they're pretty open to that. Some colleges are a little more aggressive now with their targeting. We have some of our colleges now geo-fencing actual campuses of competitors, but still the message is that kind of tightrope that I think your question alludes to is, we're showing our benefits over, say, a 4-year, but not directly mentioning them in the advertising.
Terry, John, and Jackie, however, is it fair to say that this comparison perhaps is coming up as an even more important tool right now because of COVID and because students are perhaps going to make different decisions about what they do this fall, who might have simply gone to a 4-year?
Debbie, that is exactly right. We have not ever this heavily done this. And so this is and I don't want to say we're being aggressive. We're just showing people a different alternative that they may not even have thought about. So this is the first time we have done messaging this strong about ourselves versus a 4-year institution. That is true. So, but again, I shared this with our 4-year. I just don't. They really didn't even bat an eye, which was kind of interesting. But again, we're not really calling them out or attacking them as an institution or saying they're bad or anything like that. We're just dealing with the world the way it is right now.
Right. Okay, very good. I see one. We've got a couple more questions and then we'll probably close out. I do see a note on our internal chat panel. So John, is your email, should it be JONATHAN? What's your correct email address?
Yeah, thank you, Debbie. Yeah, it's just a typo in there. So it is Joe Nathan, if you want to put it together. So it is Joe and then NATHAN. If you need to reach out to me, I'm happy to chat after this as well. Just let me know.
Right. No worries. That's an easy mistake to make. Terry, we can correct that on our end when we send out.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
No worries. Thanks for pointing that out. Okay, very good. So a couple more questions. If you have any other burning questions, get them in now because we will be closing out shortly. Question about ROI. How will you measure it? Do you have set goals to measure your success?
I'll start and then I'll let John and Jackie break it. We do have goals. We have marketing KPIs that we develop at the beginning of the year, and there are all kinds of them. A lot of them with digital campaigns that show that we have a KPI for conversion rates, all of that kind of stuff. But we do, and John is the one that does analysis for us. So when we do campaigns, we track everything all the way through how many people filled out the form, how many people applied, how many people actually enrolled. So I'm going to turn that over to him to talk a little bit more about that.
Okay, thanks, Terry. So yeah, because this is heavy digital, we have metrics that we measure. We go a lot deeper than I've seen at other institutions, mainly because it is kind of an ever-evolving fold. There's so many pieces, so many technologies involved in making this work. So essentially, we do metrics on the front end, which is, impressions, clicks, conversions, which could be a form submission or some other goal. Then we take them into our CRM. Within our CRM, we directly attribute it by campaign and by channel. And then what we do is we take the data from the CRM and move it into a third-party data warehouse that we have. And I know this may or may not work for your setup, but essentially we cross-reference it with the SIS data. The data warehouse just makes that easier. You could do this with spreadsheets. That's how I've done it in the past. But there is a lot of ways that we can then take that, because then we can say this campaign, if we want to say particularly this campaign, generated this many leads. Of those leads, this many applied. Of those that applied, this many enrolled. And then we can convert that to $1 or an ROI amount. And so that's kind of how we do it here. We may have some technology that you don't have, but like I said, it can be done putting pen to paper. I will say it's a lot more convenient when the technology works, but the idea behind being able to do it without that technology is very doable.
Okay, we've got 2 more questions that we'll field, and then we'll close it out. So one has to do with the system, your system office, Mary, and its role in advocating with the legislature. Do you have involvement there?
Absolutely, we do. Our president, and I report to our president, really oversees all of our government relations. We have a support person there that kind of monitors all the policies and all of the legislation going on, and kind of works with the lobbyists, but we work with them hand in hand. We develop and I'd be happy to share this, a detailed advocacy communication campaign for both our legislative sessions, and then when we're not in legislature. We have somebody on our staff that works directly with the presidents on their communications with legislators. We have a lot of new presidents in our system. We turned over every single president in the last 4 years. So we have a lot of training to do, and we have brought somebody on that really helps them and guides them in really building those relationships with the legislature. And then we always do a big media campaign around the legislative session. So yeah, we work really closely.
All right, one final question, a pretty simple, straightforward one, perhaps this one is for Jackie, but wondering what CMS you use for your website.
Yeah, we use OU Campus, and it's Omni Update. We love it. It's worked really well, and we migrated over to them back in 2017.
All right, very good. So with that, let's go ahead and close out. I think it's good to close out with one comment that came in fairly recently from Eve Markman at the Community College of Philadelphia. You folks are awesome. This has been really great. So thank you, Eve. And I want to personally, and on behalf of NCNPR and our board, thank Terry, Jackie, and John for doing this presentation. We know you have your hands plenty full, as do most of our members, and yet you didn't hesitate when we called and said, hey, could you do this webinar for NCNPR on this topic? And you jumped at the opportunity and you added this to your already very, very busy to-do list. So thank you, all 3 of you, for taking part in this. I want to encourage you, do see their emails. Jonathan is with an THAN. We'll get that corrected on the final slide deck, but reach out to them. They are more than that, more than happy to share information, more information, answer your questions. Don't hesitate to reach out to them. So with that, let's close things out. Again, thank you, everyone. Remember, we will be following up with an email later this afternoon. We'll send you this slide deck of the PowerPoint presentation. Look for the recorded version. If you have other folks on your staff that weren't able to attend today, you can see it on NCNPR's YouTube channel. It'll be uploaded by the end of the day. Continue, if you will, to visit NCNPR's website for more resources to help you navigate issues related to COVID-19. We've got shared resources from all of our members. We've got a new podcast, our listserv, and a variety of other tools. We are going to offer a few more webinars as part of this COVID series between now and the end of June, before we then resume our regular paid webinar programming. So watch our website for updates about those. So with that, thank you once again, everyone, so very much. Jackie, John, Terry, any final comments before we close out?
No, just thank you so much, Debbie, for asking us to present this. And please, anybody, if you have suggestions for us or good best practices, we would love to hear from you.
All right. Well, with that, thank you, everyone. We hope you stay well, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of the day.